So, who am I? Just a real brief word about my background. The name tag that I took off identifies me as a consultant with the Episcopal Church Foundation. That's my current gig. Specifically, I work with the Episcopal Church Foundation, which is a separate entity. It's not a part of the Episcopal Church itself, but we are headquartered in New York, and we do rent space at the Church Center at 815 on 2nd Street in Manhattan. And our primary mission is to expand the human and financial resources of the church for mission and ministry. Now, my major piece of that is fund development, and I work in the areas of stewardship development, helping local congregations improve their stewardship practices on an annual basis, and also with helping dioceses and congregations with capital campaign efforts. How many of you were donors in the just completed capital campaign in the Episcopal Diocese of San Diego? Some of you? Well, I was behind that. Sorry. My fault. No, it wasn't my fault. I didn't vote for it. But the diocese, I did vote for it because I'm a part of this diocese. But I was the Episcopal Church Foundation consultant who worked with the Diocese of San Diego to implement that campaign and to raise the roughly $2.7 million that campaign realized to support mission and ministry here in the Diocese of San Diego. Most of my work is with congregations. Here's one of the hard parts of my job. Currently, right now, I am working with 3 very different congregations in Honolulu. What can I say? Suffering for Jesus. Yeah, you got it. You know, it's not easy doing the math and keeping that 3-hour time difference, in mind. I have to do that. And then I have to fly out there every now and then. Frankly, I don't fly out there near as much as I'd like because it is expensive, and I'm very conscious of the fact that I have yet to see a church, let alone an Episcopal church, that is actually rolling in dough. So we do a tremendous amount of our work electronically, video conferencing, phone conferencing, those kinds of things, and I actually materialize in the islands only rarely, which is also okay. I'm also working with an Episcopal church in Santa Cruz on a capital campaign, and several others that are talking with me about stewardship and stewardship development. So that's my current gig. Over the course of my life, I was initially, as Holly pointed out, she and I are Sun Devils. Graduated way back when from Arizona State University. I had a degree in music, went on to seminary, was ordained eventually in the United Methodist Church, was a parish pastor for 18 years, moved on from there to be an executive director of a homeless shelter up in Santa Rosa, California, for families and children. Went from there to being the development director for the Dominican Order of Men in the Western United States out of their headquarters in Oakland. From there to being the development director for Episcopal Charities in the Diocese of California, and then on to a 7-year stint as one of the vice presidents at the Church Divinity School of the Pacific, which is the Episcopal Seminary of the West located in Berkeley. I was the vice president for advancement. I was responsible for all of the communications and fundraising strategies of the school and for continuing positive relationships with the alumni and anybody else in the broader world who had an interest in furthering theological education in the Episcopal Church. The smartest thing I ever did, though, was marry Laura, who is the vicar now at Holy Cross Episcopal Church in Carlsbad. And when she took that position 5 years ago, I guess now, that was an impetus for leaving the Bay Area and for leaving the position at CDSP and coming down here, where I assumed that I would just support her in her ministry, take long walks on the beach, and basically bask in the sun by the side of the pool. It has not turned out that way. I made one big mistake, and you'd think that having spent a fair amount of my life in the Episcopal Church, you'd think I would know better than this, But I went to the bishop and said, if there's some way that I can be useful in this diocese you know, I'd be glad to talk about that. So that actually launched me into doing fundraising for rebuilding Trinity Cathedral in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Some of you here at St. Bart's, that's how I really initially connected with St. Bart's, to tell you the truth. Fred was a part of that, and Abner Genesee, who has now moved away. Abner is a fine actor, professional actor, and he was involved in that. And anyway, it was a wonderful experience. It culminated in us raising about $55,000 to support that effort of rebuilding Trinity Cathedral in Port-au-Prince. It also culminated in my having a 10-day trip to Haiti, which was really a life-changing event. And oftentimes stories about that may pop up as we go. Then from that brought me into a connection with not only the bishop, but the bishop's wife, Terry, who works for, who until recently, just last week, was also an employee at the Episcopal Church Foundation. And she was the one who eventually invited me to come on the staff and be a part of that. So those are the experiences that I bring to the table. Okay, that's my background. For some reason, I was always the person at the table who was comfortable dealing with money. I don't know exactly why that is, but I was never intimidated around talking about money or asking people for money. So that gave me, because the reality is, this is the tricky, the nice thing about fundraising, okay? It's actually very, very easy work, okay? Because I promise you, if it was very hard, I couldn't do it, right? Let's face it, I was looking for work that didn't require a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of exercising. I was looking for something that would be, low energy, not consume a lot of effort, didn't require a lot of brain power. I mean, the facts are, you can go to a week-long seminar and you can learn pretty much everything you need to know to be a fundraising professional. It's not that it's hard work, it's that people are just horribly intimidated by it. So, if you can get over that, the rest is easy. So that's this. I already wasted too much of our time on that topic. Okay, let's get this to work. Great. I didn't want that to happen. Okay. All right. There we go. All right, now, okay, question I want to get from you before we talk about that real quick. I want to know what church you're from, your name, what church you're from, and how much is whatever ballpark you know, if it's not precise, that's okay, just general. What's the pledge and plate giving in your congregation? Okay, Mimi, you're from?
All Saints Vista.
All Saints Vista. Everybody know where All Saints Vista is? Up in the North County? Beautiful place. And what's the pledge and plate at All Saints Vista?
40,000.
40,000. So that's kind of the nut that you have to raise.
For the Lutherans, pledge and plate is not a familiar term.
Okay, pledge giving. Let's try that. Let's see. Annual giving? Okay, how about right back here? You're from Trinity, right?
Escondido.
Yeah.
John Crossway.
Yeah, John.
One of the vestry members there. I believe it's around
180.
180.
It's okay. We just need a nice round number. What I'm talking about is if you were going out to have your stewardship annual effort in the fall, how much would you be needing to raise? Would you be hoping to come up with? John, what about you? Where are you from?
St. Matthew's Church in National City. Our pledge giving is around 40,000.
And Megan,
Sorry, I can't even guess.
what church are you from again? Where?
St. Tim's.
Oh, St. Tim's.
I just don't, I'm new to it and I have no.
Yeah, I
clue.
knew. It'd be a good guess at St. Tim's. I mean, just knowing St. Tim's, I'm going to put you down for 125. How about you, sir?
Outside from St. Andrews and Mesa, it's somewhere around 100,000.
Okay. And you're from St. John's?
St. John's Lutheran Alcohol.
El Cajon, I saw you.
4 of us here.
Thank you for braving the Episcopal fold.
I married an Episcopalian. She does very well. She just sings all the wrong tunes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know the problem.
And I just found out that my first wife is becoming an Episcopalian, so there's some balance in the universe.
But I think you're at ELCA.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I would just say as an aside, one of the fun things that's happening at my wife's church is that we are now home to Spirit Harbor Lutheran Church.
Yes.
Which-
James Dripson.
Yeah, so they've been, as you know, there's been some differences of opinion at King of Kings. And so now there's a group called Spirit Harbor, then they're meeting at Holy Cross, and we've enjoyed working with them. And it also turns out that one of the churches I'm working with in Honolulu, St. Peter's Episcopal Church, which is right back of the cathedral, St. Andrew's, interesting arrangement, is pastored by Diane Martinson. I don't know if you know, she's part of the Pacifica Synod and Lutheran pastor. So there's a good working relationship between us. So I'm glad you're here. Do you have some number to share with us that you would pull out of your hat for the money that...
Our treasurer speaks.
83.
83. Okay. All right. Who else? Hilliard.
All Souls, and we've got 320. I'm Catalan.
Okay. How about St. Bart's?
Our last goal was 750.
750. Okay. Okay. So, hey, and there's the man right there. All right, so let's see. If we do a little bit of math, let me just take that. That's 280 right there. And then 165. And then we've got 320. And that's 833. Okay. So 5, 8, 3, 11, 17, 19, 9 carry the 1, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. All right, so this is our job today. Right here. This is the work that we have to do. Right now, in the room, over the course of the day, we have to figure out how to come up with roughly $1.6 million. Okay? That's what you're telling me it's going to take to run all our churches. Piece of cake, right? So, we talk about stewardship. What is stewardship? Anybody got an answer for that?
Sharing your time with balance.
Okay, here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to give you, just turn and get into groups of threes real quick. Just move so you can talk with one another. I want you to I'm going to give you literally maybe a minute or two to talk with one another about what is stewardship.
All resources. We currently haven't done it in years, so.
Okay, I'm just going to give you another minute. Make sure everybody gets a chance to say something.
Combining any forms of what we could make congregation.
In good use.
Okay, let's come back together. Let's come back together. So what did you hear? What did you hear from somebody? Tell me what somebody told you about what stewardship is.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. What else?
Getting people's time and talent and using it.
Getting people's time and talent and using it. What else?
Stewards of God's gifts.
What's that again?
Stewards of God's gifts.
Stewards of God's gifts. Okay.
Richard mentioned taking care of what we've been loaned.
Yeah, taking care of what you've been loaned. It's interesting. Yeah, it's not ours. It belongs. It's been placed in our care.
We don't own it and we don't earn it.
That's a nice phrase. We don't own it and we don't earn it. Right.
But we take good care of it.
And that somehow is I think resonates with this passage from the Psalms. How can I repay the Lord for all the good He has done for me? That's a part of what you were saying. There are a lot of images that we associate with stewardship. Images of flight, of colors, friendship, talent, family, caretaking, love, commitment, vision, family. Think of us in this way as servants of Christ and stewards of God's mysteries, of all of the tremendous beauty and bounty that the world holds that has been placed in our care. Stewardship in a lot of ways is simply a way of living. It's how we exist and interact on the earth. My favorite one-sentence definition of stewardship is one I actually learned from Bishop Greg Rickel in Olympia. Stewardship is all that you do with all that you have after you say, I believe. Okay? It's all that you do with all that you have after you say, I believe. Now, one of the biggest problems that the church faces today is deciding that stewardship is all about money. It is not. Okay? Stewardship is not just about money. One of the reasons that I believe that financial stewardship in the church is often so poor is that we make it, we put too much focus on it. We think that just by focusing on money and by having a Cracker Jack stewardship campaign, which is a phrase actually that I don't like to use, if I could do, personal bias here, and I have long history that tells me that this is one of those goals that I will never achieve, okay? But I would like you to never again use the phrase stewardship campaign, okay? I like to, and I will probably trip up here today, and if I do, just point it out to me, okay? That's a pledge campaign. It's a part of your general stewardship effort at the church, okay? You have a pledge campaign that helps you raise the money. It's a way of being good stewards of your finances. But if we have to break down the notion that stewardship is just about money. Because if you make money your goal, you don't end up getting it, all right? So these are the questions, to put this in a larger perspective, these are the questions that I think every church needs to ask. How are we being stewards of the seekers who find their way to our church? So what is your church doing with visitors who come? How do you interact with them? How do you make them feel at home? How do you make them feel welcome? How do you make them feel like this is a place where they might want to come back? Or do you just ignore them? Are you being good stewards? See, that's the question. How are we being good stewards of the seekers who find their way to our church? How are you being good stewards of the children who've been given into your care? Are you teaching them? Are you loving them? Are you nurturing them? Are you making an environment at your church so that they feel at home and welcome? Okay? How are you being good stewards of the children? How are you being stewards of the seniors who face the challenges of aging in your congregation? Are they dealing with loneliness and loss, isolation, illness, fears of death, loss of a partner, loss of a child, you know, the loss of independence? How are we being good stewards of the seniors in our communities who are facing a variety of needs? How are we being good stewards of the lost and the lonely in our neighborhoods? The people who stand on the corner looking for food, a handout, the people who are clearly facing mental health issues, the homeless. Are we being good stewards of them? They're a part of our community. How are we being good stewards of, as our liturgy says, this fragile earth, our island home, so that the water is drinkable, the air is breathable? How are we being good stewards of those who are ill in body, mind, or spirit? In terms of comforting the sick, being with the grieving, addressing the needs of those who struggle with mental illness. Like I have a brother who's paranoid schizophrenic, and you know, he's doing really well, but it requires a lot of love and care from a lot of people. How are we good stewards of the property that's in our care? Whether we lease it or we own it, do we keep it up? Do we maintain it? We need to ask these stewardship questions, not just the stewardship question about our money, but these stewardship questions as well. And what oftentimes happens is we get so focused on the question of stewardship of our finances that we're not really exploring these other stewardship obligations that are a part of our community. And my contention is that if you ask these questions, if you do this work well, you will find that many of your problems with the stewardship of finances will end up being solved. Now, we do have to address this one. This is one of the questions on the list about stewardship. But please don't make it the only one. Now, real quick, same small groups that you were in before. Who were the top 3 recipients of your charitable giving and why? So I'm going to start you off by giving you mine, just so that you get an example of this. My #1 charitable contribution is to the church. Has been for a while now, the church, and by that I include the diocese in its various levels. You know, so that's always been, you know, if I look at my checkbook, that's the biggest one, without a doubt. The second one for me is Wiederhoven de Mexico, which a lot of us know as Dorcas House. I'm on there, I am a member of their board of directors, and so supporting that organization and helping those children in Mexico who are all homeless, either foster because their parents have abandoned them or died, and giving these small children a chance in life is become a passion of mine. The third one is, frankly, is the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, Oregon. I'm a big theater lover. My wife and I own a home up there. My daughter is not, she's a stage manager in the theater world, not at that particular theater, but in the Bay Area. But we love theater and we love the arts. I was raised in this context of music and performance. And so we've become generous donors to this festival. So those are my top 3 philanthropic interests. and kind of why. So now, share amongst your friends. What are your top 3 recipients of your charitable giving and why?
I'll start.
Okay. Do you want to? I was going to ask you to talk to these.
Oh.
Share with that in a little group, and then we'll share back together.
Right. Start with the church.
Well, Calvary Lutheran comes down to, and then $100 a month to some particular need that comes up. Tied between the two churches.
And then just varies between different organizations.
That was before. I came here. I was in we were stationed in Mississippi at the time. And one day, the hurricane came out.
So,
And I don't have the means at that time. So I came
Okay, I'm just going to give you another minute. Give everybody a chance as possible to weigh in if they'd like.
Trying to get through school.
Senate, the East County Transitional Center.
Okay, let's come back together. So what did you hear from people? What are their priorities and why?
we didn't do why.
What's that?
We didn't do why.
Oh, you didn't do why.
Same on the top. So.
Everybody's same at the top, which meant to church. Okay. And what else came up?
It touched, I think the why part, Jerry, a little bit is that we felt it touched us personally in some way.
Right.
Through cancer through our family, or an illness through, that kind of tug at your heart. A friend of yours who is involved in it. That was the why, because it was a personal.
Those are the whys that you came up with. Mifa, anybody over here? Somebody shared something that you want that we should all hear about?
Right, my priority was the church.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I take my my family, where we meet friends and worship the Lord. And the second one was the Navy relief. I had an experience before. I was stationed in Mississippi before, and Hurricane Camille came and destroyed the base. And there was an abrupt change of duty station. And I was sent here in California, and I was low on funds at that time, so I went to the Navy relief. That was the only organization that I know that can help me. So I went there and they lent me some money. It was a loan. They gave it to me, but to me it was a loan.
No, but it was a life-changing kind of thing.
Exactly. So right now, aside from the church, I also give to the neighbor life. It's just
Good.
paying them back.
Good. So does this sound familiar to you? No? I mean, this isn't how it works?
You've got some good dreams. I want your drugs.
Oh. No, of course it doesn't work this way. The way it usually works is, oh, I've been going to Saints with Us by the Sea, and I've just gotten more and more involved, and I've gradually given more and more money. Okay? So giving flows out of involvement, and engagement, and personal interaction. That's why we give. So the question is, why do people give? I guarantee, I'd be willing to bet you on this one. Okay? If you go through your church and you do a survey and you ask people why they give, what you're going to find out is that they give because they feel loved, included, and valued. They give because the congregation has been a source of strength and nurture to them in a time of crisis. They give because at your church they have a sense of belonging. They give because their values are in sync with the core values of the congregation. Okay? And how they're lived out in the community. And they give because their souls have been fed, their minds stretched, and their hearts lifted. Yeah.
Well, you started out saying, switching that around, they got more involved. Our problem is, how do you get involved?
Okay, well, that is, yeah, what we're going to say.
Well, I would say, there are probably a few of us for whom our giving is a devotional practice.
True.
Those are the reasons I might join a congregation, but those are the reasons I might join a congregation. But as soon as I start with a congregation, I would be giving as much as I would be giving 5 years later. Except, again, where I grew up, it was a devotional practice.
Right.
Like prayer and communion. So.
You're a rare breed. I mean, I admire that. Though my only concern would be I'd like to think you'd be giving more in 5 years.
Oh no, I say I'm going to grow in my giving, but
right. But it flows from a different place. It flows from a sense of devotion, commitment, spiritual grounding, those kind of things. But honestly, I wouldn't say that that's a.
Well, I wouldn't say it was. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I probably should have had that on this list. My contention is that if churches are notorious for devoting little or no time to plowing, planting, and fertilizing, and then wondering why the harvest was so poor. Okay? That's my, this is the image that goes out of my agrarian background. And what we need to do is you need to spend time plowing, planting, and fertilizing. So what is that stuff? That's seeing to it that, people feel all those things. You cannot solve the financial problems of a congregation simply by having a super pledge campaign every year. Rather, you increase the financial viability of a congregation by helping more people become loved, included, and valued, experiencing the congregation as a place that was with them in a time of crisis, where they belong, where they know their values are in sync with the core values of the congregation, where they have the experience of having their soul fed, their mind stretched, where the devotional practice of giving is celebrated in the life of the community. I will add that one next time around. And then you follow that up every year with a super pledge campaign. All right? But this is where giving is really enhanced. It's not built out of, wow, what super duper program can we run this fall that's going to bring in a whole ton of money and solve our financial problems. It's a much longer term process than that. So you need to have these conversations. Are you a congregation where people feel loved, included, and valued? So how are you going about that? How is that taking place? How is it ensured? You know, and particularly around newcomers. Is this a place where, all the people who have been there for 10 to 20 years feel loved, included, and valued. But if you've only been there for a year, well, good luck. All right? Is the congregation really there for people in a time of crisis, or does it cultivate a culture of we'll just look the other way? We don't really want to know that Hilliard's life is falling apart. Hilliard, we'll just kind of, you know, keep that to yourself. You know, we're always on our best behavior here at church. Everybody's happy, everything's good. Or is this a place where Hilliard can really say, you know, my life sucks right now. I need help. I need my community of faith to rally around me right now, and that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be intensely vulnerable and accepting of trouble. And congregations are not always good at this. So while we're going to spend all of the rest of our time today talking about stewardship of financial resources, I want to tell you the real key to a sound financial future is having this conversation within the body of your church, from the leaders on down, and seeing to it that you're cultivating these kind of experiences in the life of your community. That's what's going to resolve your financial issues in the long run. That said, my goal today is to fill up your pledge campaign toolkit with what I consider to be basic tools. Now, we're going to launch into this, and we're not going to get through the presentation piece before, well, I don't know, is there a brief break time this morning where other people shift?
Schedule this back to back to back, I don't understand.
Okay, so we'll take a break at 11:30. We'll take a break at 11:30, but since you're all going to be here, you know, we'll just take a break time, and then we'll come back, get back to work. I'm going to give you, I want you to know, there are a zillion ways to run a pledge campaign. Everything from, you know, a commitment Sunday to an online campaign, to cottage meetings around in people's homes, to, you know, I mean, you can get books and books and books and books that have tons of these out there. The bottom line is, in my opinion, for the most part, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Okay? It's what makes them work at any point is how you implement it. Once again, I'm sure that none of your churches fit this description, so you can leave yourselves out of this. So, but there are other churches out there, not yours, who don't do anything. They're intimidated by the process. They don't feel like they have enough leadership. They just never get around to it every year to find the energy to kind of put a plan together and then follow the plan through. And they can kind of, you know, enough money comes in to kind of keep the ship afloat, and, you know, and they can kind of maybe just move from crisis to crisis financially. So, you know, some churches operate like that.
They don't like talking about it.
They don't like talking about it.
Ooh, don't tell me you're talking about it.
Then there are churches that they'll say, well, we'll have a stewardship campaign, but we don't want to spend any money on it because we want to be frugal. You know, we don't want to be seen as spending a bunch of money, so we're going to do it on the cheap. And so we're just going to send out a letter with a pledge card, and that'll be it. We're not going to hound our people. Well, that doesn't work very well either. So then there are congregations that say, well, oh, here's a spiffy plan. Here's this really spiffy plan. And we're going to buy this package, and it comes with all these materials, and we're going to run this thing out. But, you know, and Megan's going to lead it. But you know, Megan and Hilliard sit down together and go, wow, you know, but this cuts right into my vacation time. So we'll shorten it up. It was originally 6 weeks, but we'll do it in 4. So that means we're going to carve out these 2 letters. Those letters weren't important anyway. And I really don't like this logo, so we'll use some other logo. And you know, that pledge card is, you know, we've got a pledge card that we used last year that was just fine. I don't know why we need this other pledge card here. And so they slice and dice and cut this thing up, and then they're surprised when the response is poor. No, what makes a plan work is that somebody has thought this plan through, and for the most part, if you will implement it methodically, just the way it's designed, from beginning to end, it will have good results. Okay? But we're always thinking we can cut corners. We're always thinking the rules don't apply to us. We can find some other way to do it. No, you take whatever plan you decide on and you implement it methodically from beginning to end. Okay, so what I'm going to give you over the course of the rest of the day, and what, if you want to, what I hope you would walk out of here with, is my plan, which is not my plan. This is stuff that I just want to tell you this little story. The content in this presentation is 99.9% mine. I don't have much of a design thing in mind, so my wife volunteered to go through this and improve some of the design elements, which is wonderful of her. Made it look a lot better. There was one place you'll find where I'll point out where she made a change. The slide that I had said, you should steal anything you want off the internet. And she changed it to borrow. You should borrow off the internet and cite your sources. You know, I left it that way, but I really mean steal. Okay? You know, I've just stolen stuff that I find works. I've not attributed it to anybody, but I'm just owning up to the fact that I didn't invent this. I stole this stuff from somebody, I stole that from somebody, and I've put it all together. I've used it a half a dozen times. My belief is this is simple, basic, and it works. But if you want to do it methodically from the beginning to the end. Okay, you ready to start to roll into the process here? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, 10 things you're going to need. Now, let me tell you this. I mean, I'm glad you're all taking notes. I think that's a good discipline. I learn better when I'm taking notes. But everybody here that wants one is going to get one of these little puppies. Okay? I have dumped a ton of stuff onto these thumb drives. It includes this PowerPoint presentation, all kinds of sample letters, sample pledge cards, whole sample campaigns.
Now, aren't you glad you came here today?
Whole sample campaigns, links to web resources. I don't know. I mean, I can't even remember. I'll give you a guided tour of this before I give it to you, so you'll have some idea what's there. But you'll get all this stuff on here. I do not believe in, I mean, we couldn't have put onto paper, duplicated onto paper all the stuff that I put on here. It would have been horrible waste.
Not good stewards of paper,
okay,
right? So
you all get a little thumb drive. All right, but I'm going to tell you what this particular campaign needs. The first thing you need is leadership. All right? Pretty much any 3 people could pull this off. All right? Even those guys could do this. 2 to 3 people, that's all you need. This does not require a cast of thousands, but it does require 2 or 3 people who will say yes and will be on the ball and will do it. All right? The next thing you need to do is you need to set some goals. I believe that you need to know some basic numbers in order to have an effective campaign. If for nothing else, it's the only way you can evaluate year to year what's happening in the life of your financial life of your congregation. So you need to know how much total amount of money you need to raise. This is what we were talking about over here. Okay? What's the total amount of money that you need to raise in your pledge campaign? Now, this will not be the amount of your budget. Okay? It almost never is. Because your budget has a variety of income sources. Almost all of you have earned income from someplace. Right. Rental of the property, you have a school that rents property, you know, whatever. There's a variety of things that are going on that are additional income. That's why in the Episcopal world we talk about pledge and plate, because that's the giving that comes from individuals. It's the amount that people have pledged, and then the plate is what in my Methodist days I would call free offering kind of thing. It's the money that shows up in the offering plate, and you have no idea where it comes from unless somebody actually wrote a check. Okay, so first of all, what's the total amount of money you need to raise in this campaign in order to deal with the budgetary issues that you're facing? The second thing that you need to have in mind is the number of pledging units that you have in your congregation. Okay? So take, for instance, I believe, I don't know this, once again, it's not my wife would know these numbers, I don't. At Holy Cross, I think they have about 52 or 53 pledging units in their community. Now, there are more people than that who come and worship at that church on a regular basis, but not all of them make a pledge. So it really helps if people do make a pledge, because it's part of the devotional practice. We want to communicate that. It also allows the leadership of the church to, to plan for its financial future, to have some sense of what money is coming in. Yeah?
No, we have some people, we don't have any pledges at all, but another congregation, we had some people who pledged and some people who were regular as clockwork givers. Right. Would we be counting them in that number?
Yes. What I talk about, well, just as an aside, I do two things. When I work with congregations, first of all, they're pledgers or estimates of giving. People call it a variety of different things. In some places, I've known people who are really uncomfortable with the concept of a pledge. They feel like a pledge constitutes an obligation in a way that troubles them. And so some congregations have switched to use the term just an estimate of giving, which people feel, it's just an estimate. It might be higher, might be lower, but here's my estimate. The other thing that happens is there are people who won't make a pledge or an estimate of giving. I call those people casual pledgers. And for instance, what I do is so like I work with a church up in St. Helena, Grace Episcopal Church in St. Helena, to help them do a very big, robust annual stewardship campaign. You know, this is one of the nice things about this job. I had to go up to the Napa Valley 3 or 4 times in the fall to help them. And the guy who was the head of the stewardship committee owns this little boutique winery. Oh, it was like, what a job. Anyway, they said the same thing. Well, we got these people. And I said, well, look, here's how you deal with them. You know what they gave last year. You got a whole year's record on them, okay? What you need to do is I think it's fair to assume, unless they don't tell you otherwise, they're probably going to keep doing that. If they don't do that, they're going to do something related to that. And so you wait until the end of January when you've got a month's record. Then you have a line in your budget that's, actually I don't publish it, but it says casual givers, casual pledgers. And after a month, you know what they're going to give. Then you use that number in addition to your actual pledges. Kind of keep it quiet. But it's something that is something that you can work with. Yeah, it's good for planning. The other thing that so you should know every year, we want to raise this much money, and it represents X number of percent over last year. We want to go from 52 pledging units to 54 pledging units if we possibly can. We want to increase that amount. And this is always hard because every year in the Episcopal Church, what happens? Two things that I really resent. People die and people move. If we could just stop that,
That solves the whole problem.
it would really solve a lot. You know, if people would quit dying and quit moving, we wouldn't be this constant decline in giving that we have to face. But the problem is, in order to, if you've got 52 pledging units and you want to go up to 55 pledging units, that's only 3, right? But you got to replace the 5 people who died and moved. So you're really talking about 8. Okay, so 8. Now you're talking about some serious growth. All right? Yeah. I mean, that's why it is so hard. That's why I think if we can just, General Convention is coming up, right? We just need a motion. No more dying and moving. I'll take care of it. All right, so you get the number of pledging units you want to get to, and you calculate your average pledge, and you want to see, how does this average pledge compare with, say, the average in our diocese or the average in our denomination? Are we above that? Are we below that? I'll give you some numbers later for what those are in the Episcopal Church. Can we increase this? Can we help our people have a devotional practice that encourages greater levels of generosity? But if you don't calculate an average pledge, you have no idea what you're working with. Okay? So the next thing you do is, after you get the leadership, right, then you're going to set goals.
Do we have a spot where it's convenient to stop, Jerry?
We can stop any time. Let me do one more.
No problem.
That'll get us right to 11:30.
Okay.
The calendar. This is the third thing you need. You're going to need a 4 to 6 week time frame. My recommendation is 6. So you're going to need the church's calendar through the fall so you can figure out what time frame this will work in. And you need your leadership people's calendars. The first question was what? Leadership? Now you're going to, I swear to you, this happens all too often. Somebody says, okay, well, Mimi said she'd be one of the leaders, the key leaders on the pledge campaign this fall. But she's going to be gone for a week right in the middle of the campaign. Is that going to be a problem? And everybody says, oh, I'm sure we can make that work. The answer is no, it's a problem. It is a problem. We need people somebody in leadership who's going to be there and shepherd the entire thing through. So I guess Mimi's out, unless she wants to change her vacation. I know it sounds hard-hearted, but it's a process that is methodical all the way on through, and it requires the attention of the leadership from beginning to end. So it needs to be coordinated with the church calendar, and it needs to be coordinated with the calendars of the people who are in leadership. Okay? Hilliard.
Why do you prefer 6 weeks over 4?
When I'm talking, well, we'll see the calendar. You'll see the calendar I've lined out. The 6 weeks calendar includes a week of prep and time at the end for follow-up. Okay. It's really a 4-week of push on the campaign itself from the first Sunday to the last Sunday. But you've got to do stuff before the campaign begins, amongst your leadership. And the other thing that I'm sure is not a problem in any of your congregations, I'm sure that when Commitment Sunday comes along, by golly, you've got 100% of those pledges in the door. Isn't that right? Yeah. I have yet to see that. So that means that you need to build some time at the end for the effective follow-up that goes on. That's why I say 6 weeks. So 4 weeks in the middle, it's really more than a week at the front, probably, to get all the early things, and it may well spill over in the back. But if you're careful, you can do it in 6 weeks.